We, the Galactic Council, hereby sentence Marcus Fletcher of Earth to permanent exile on the planet Vorax. The announcement echoed through the vast chamber as Marcus Fletcher stood in the center, surrounded by representatives from 17 different sentient species. His crime? Making a rather pointed joke about Ambassador Gorlak's third appendage and its suspiciously phallic appearance during a high-stakes peace negotiation. Turns out humor doesn't translate well across species, especially when said appendage was considered sacred in Gorlakian culture. Excuse me, Marcus raised his hand like a schoolboy, his diplomatic immunity badge glinting under the chamber lights. Did you say Vorax? As in the death world? As in the planet where everything evolved specifically to kill everything else? High Councillor Jin, a gelatinous blob with 12 eye stalks, wobbled in what passed for a nod among his species. Indeed, Marcus Fletcher. The very same. Cool, cool, cool. Just checking. Marcus nodded, maintaining his irreverent demeanor despite the cold sweat breaking out across his forehead. Seems proportionate for a joke. Very reasonable. The council has spoken, Jean gurgled, his translator converting the wet sounds into standard Galactic. Consider yourself fortunate. Ambassador Gorlak initially requested your immediate atomization. Ambassador Gorlak, a 7-foot-tall insectoid with gleaming carapace, clicked his mandibles in what Marcus could only interpret as smug satisfaction. The appendage in question wriggled obscenely. How about we compromise? I'll write a formal apology, maybe throw in some Earth chocolates. I hear they're quite the delicacy out here in the Galactic Rim. But the council had already moved on, discussing the logistics of his exile with clinical detachment. Marcus found himself being escorted from the chamber by 2 hulking security drones, their mechanical arms gripping him firmly but not painfully. For what it's worth, Marcus called back to the council. The joke was really funny. You should have heard it in the original English. The transport to Vorax took 3 standard days. 3 days in which Marcus alternated between panic, resignation, and finally, a sort of grim determination. He'd graduated top of his class in xenodiplomacy, damn it. He could figure this out. The ship's AI was his only company. It spoke in a monotone that somehow still conveyed pity. And at Vorax, it informed him as they approached. Atmospheric composition, breathable for humans, though higher in oxygen content. Surface gravity, 1.2 times Earth standard. Average temperature, tropical. Average lifespan of non-native visitors, approximately 6 hours. 6 hours? Marcus choked. That's specific. It is an average based on previous visitors, the AI replied. The dominant predator species has evolved particular efficiency at hunting and consuming alien life forms. The ship began its descent through Vorax's atmosphere, and Marcus got his first view of his new home. Lush green jungles stretched as far as the eye could see, interrupted only by gleaming blue rivers and the occasional rocky outcropping. It looked like paradise. It was a damn lie. The ship landed in a small clearing, the only area flat enough to accommodate it. The hatch hissed open, letting in a wave of hot, humid air that smelled of vegetation and something else, something musky and primal. Your exile begins now, the AI informed him. Your diplomatic credentials have been revoked. No extraction will be authorized. Thanks for nothing, Marcus muttered, stepping onto the alien soil. The ship wasted no time, its engines flaring as it prepared for immediate departure. Oh, and one more thing, Marcus Fletcher, the AI added as the hatch began to close. The dominant species can smell fear. I would recommend against it. With that cheery farewell, the ship sealed itself and took off, leaving Marcus alone in a clearing that suddenly seemed much smaller than before. The jungle around him rustled with movement, and a series of low growls emanated from the dense foliage. 6 hours, huh? Marcus said to no one in particular, feeling dozens of unseen eyes on him. Let's see about that. The first attack came approximately 8 minutes after the ship departed. Not even time to unpack, not that he had luggage. The Galactic Council hadn't exactly allowed him to pack for his permanent vacation in Predator Paradise. A blur of motion burst from the underbrush, 6 limbs, iridescent scales, and a mouth full of teeth, that seemed to spiral all the way down its throat. Later, Marcus would learn this was a juvenile Voraxian leaper, one of the less dangerous predators. At that moment, it seemed pretty damn dangerous. Marcus did what any sensible human would do. He screamed like a 5-year-old and ran. And that's when he discovered his first unexpected advantage. Humans, it turned out, were freakishly good endurance runners compared to most galactic species, including Voraxian predators. The leaper, designed for ambush and short bursts of speed, began to lag after just 10 minutes of pursuit. Marcus, despite being a diplomat whose exercise routine consisted primarily of walking to the embassy cafeteria, found himself outpacing the creature. He collapsed against a tree trunk, gasping for breath but alive, as the leaper gave up and skulked away to find easier prey. "Take that, evolution," he wheezed, pumping a victory fist in the air. Over the next day, already exceeding the AI's grim 6-hour prediction, Marcus made 2 more crucial discoveries about humans and Vorax. First, the higher oxygen content that made the atmosphere so favorable to the planet's massive predators also gave him unexpected endurance. Once he acclimated, he found himself able to run faster and longer than he ever could on Earth. Second, and perhaps more importantly, he realized that Voraxian predators had evolved in an ecosystem where nothing threw things. The concept of projectile weapons seemed entirely foreign to them. When Marcus, cornered by a pack of what looked like cross between velociraptors and Komodo dragons, desperately hurled a rock at the lead creature, he was astonished to see the entire pack retreat in confusion. After experimenting with this advantage, Marcus constructed a crude sling from vines and strips of bark. The first time he brought down a small flying creature, which had been trying to inject him with paralytic venom, from 30 feet away, he actually laughed out loud. "If only my high school PE teacher could see me now," he muttered, retrieving his kill. All those dodgeball games finally paying off. By the end of his 3rd day on Vorax, Marcus had constructed a rudimentary shelter in the hollow of a massive tree and begun to catalogue the local fauna by their threat level. The apex predator's massive 6-limbed creatures with armored hides and multiple rows of teeth he gave a wide berth, but he was no longer merely prey. On the 4th day, he observed something unexpected: organization. What he had taken for random hunting patterns among the predators revealed itself as a complex social hierarchy. The creatures communicated through a combination of growls, scent markers, and body postures. They weren't just animals, they were sapient, and they were watching him with increasing interest. Marcus was skinning his latest kill when he felt the hairs on the back of his neck stand up. Slowly turning, he found himself face to face with one of the largest predators he'd seen yet, easily 9 feet tall, with iridescent black scales and eyes that gleamed with unmistakable intelligence. "Well," Marcus said, gripping his makeshift spear, "this is going to be interesting." The massive predator didn't immediately attack, which Marcus counted as a win. Instead, it cocked its head, studying him with those unnerving gold-flecked eyes. Then, to Marcus's shock, it made a series of clicking sounds that his diplomatic training told him was unmistakably language. "Sorry, big guy. I don't speak terrifying death monster," Marcus said, maintaining eye contact while slowly reaching for his sling. The creature noticed the movement and let out a warning hiss. Then, it did something even more surprising. It dropped a bundle at Marcus's feet. Unrolling by itself, the bundle revealed what could only be described as a crude map, scratched onto a piece of cured hide. "Are you trying to communicate?" Marcus asked incredulously. The predator responded by pointing at the map, then at Marcus, then making a follow-me gesture that was surprisingly universal. "I'm probably going to regret this," Marcus muttered. But he nodded and gestured for the creature to lead on. His giant guide led him deeper into the jungle than he'd dared venture before. After an hour's journey, they arrived at what could only be described as a settlement, dozens of structures built into the trees and rocks, populated by various sizes of the predator species. In the center of the settlement stood a smaller, evidently younger predator who rushed forward excitedly upon seeing Marcus. This one had copper-colored scales with blue markings and moved with a slight limp. "Human," the younger predator exclaimed in heavily accented but recognizable Galactic standard. "And you speak?" Marcus nearly fell over in shock. You know Galactic Standard? Earned from skyships. The young predator explained enthusiastically. I Krell. You and Marcus. Marcus Fletcher, he replied automatically, diplomatic training kicking in despite the surreal situation. Your standard is impressive. Krell preened visibly at the compliment, iridescent scales rippling with what seemed to be pleasure. Others think waste time. Say sky shit people think us animals, but Krell know better. Over the next few days, with Krell as his guide and translator, Marcus learned the true situation on Vorax. The predators who called themselves the Hish were not just intelligent, but had developed a complex society based around hunting prowess and territory. They had observed the occasional visitors from the stars but had been dismissed by the Galactic Council as non-sentient, dangerous fauna. Council mining ships take ground fire, Krell explained one evening as they sat around a thermal pit. Kill hunting grounds. Many Hish starve. Ground fire? You mean radioactive minerals? Marcus asked. His diplomatic mind already spinning with implications. Krell confirmed this with a nod. Ships come, dig, take. No ask. When Hish fight back, sky people call us animals, send hunters. The revelation hit Marcus like a punch to the gut. The Galactic Council wasn't just mining, they were exploiting a world they'd deliberately misclassified as uninhabited by sentient life. And now they'd conveniently dumped him here, probably expecting him to be eaten, eliminating a diplomatic embarrassment. But the Hish hadn't eaten him. In fact, through Krell, he learned that they found humans fascinating. His ability to throw objects with deadly accuracy was seen as something almost magical, while his endurance and problem-solving were respected traits. There was just one problem. The current alpha of the Hish, a massive battle-scarred predator named Drak-Thar, saw Marcus's growing influence as a threat. According to Hish law, there was only one way to resolve such a challenge. You must fight Drak-Thar, Krell informed him solemnly, or leave territory. Or leave territory. Fight? As in, combat to the death with a 9-foot alien killing machine? Marcus laughed nervously. Is there a third option, maybe a strongly worded letter? Krell's expression suggested he didn't understand the joke. No third way. Drak-Thar say you weak, say Krell waste time. Say Hish who follow human ideas will die when ground fire poison all hunting lands. Marcus sighed, looking around at the Hish who had begun to accept him, to listen to his ideas about contacting the Galactic Council with formal complaints rather than attacks. If he left now, Drak-Thar would ensure none of that progress continued. When does this fight happen? He asked finally. When next night's star rises, Krell replied, pointing to one of Vorax's 3 moons. 2 days. Days. Fantastic, Marcus muttered. Just enough time to write my will. If only there was someone in this star system who cared. The arena for the challenge was a natural amphitheater formed by a semicircle of massive, twisted trees. Every Hish in the territory had gathered to watch hundreds of predators of various sizes and scale colorations, all focused intently on the small clearing where Marcus stood awaiting his almost certain doom. Drak-Thar entered the arena to a chorus of hisses and roars from the spectators. The alpha was even more intimidating up close, nearly 10 feet tall, covered in battle scars, with one milky eye that had clearly been damaged in a previous challenge. There was nothing friendly or curious in his gaze as he looked at Marcus, only contempt. Human, Drak-Thar growled in broken standard, clearly wanting Marcus to understand his words. You soft. You die now. Charming, Marcus replied, gripping his makeshift spear. He had spent the past 2 days preparing, crafting what weapons he could and formulating a plan that had, at best, a microscopic chance of success. Just so we're clear on the rules, I win. I become alpha, right? The Hish follow my lead regarding the council and the mining. Drak-Thar made a sound that might have been laughter. If win. But no win. Only die. We'll see about that, Marcus murmured. A signal was given, and the challenge began. Drak-Thar didn't immediately charge as Marcus had expected. Instead, the massive predator began circling. evaluating his prey with the patience of an experienced hunter. Marcus resisted the urge to make the first move. His only advantages were his human unpredictability and the tools he'd prepared. Rushing in would negate both. The standoff continued for several tense minutes before Drakthar finally lost patience and lunged with shocking speed. Marcus narrowly dodged, but not before one of the Alpha's claws grazed his arm, drawing blood. "First blood to me, human," Drakthar growled. "Soon last blood too." Marcus didn't waste breath on a response. Instead, he reached into a pouch at his belt and threw a handful of the fine mineral powder he'd collected from a riverbed. The particles hung in the air momentarily before Drakthar charged through them and directly into their irritating effect on his sensitive olfactory organs. The Alpha roared in confusion and discomfort, temporarily disoriented. Marcus used the opportunity to put distance between them and ready his next move. What followed was not a battle of brute strength that would have ended in seconds with Marcus as a red smear on the arena floor. Instead, it was a contest between Drakthar's raw power and Marcus's human ingenuity. For every attack the Alpha launched, Marcus had a countermeasure tripwires concealed in the dirt, strategically placed throwing weapons, and, most effectively, a deep understanding of what the Hish considered honorable combat. The turning point came when Marcus allowed himself to be cornered against one of the arena's boundary trees. Drakthar, sensing victory, charged with all his considerable might only to find himself crashing through a carefully weakened section of the ancient trunk. The massive tree groaned, shifted, and slowly began to topple. Marcus rolled clear as the tree crashed down, pinning Drakthar's lower body beneath its enormous weight. The Alpha roared in rage and pain, clawing desperately at the ground as he tried to free himself. The arena fell silent as Marcus approached the trapped predator, spear in hand. By Hish law, he was expected to deliver the killing blow. Instead, he planted his spear in the ground just out of Drakthar's reach. "I'm not going to kill you," Marcus announced, loud enough for all to hear. "That's not how humans lead. We win by being smarter, not just stronger, and sometimes we win by showing mercy when we don't have to." He turned to address the gathered Hish. "If I'm to be your Alpha, understand this, I won't lead you through fear or violence. I'll lead you toward a future where the Galactic Council recognizes your sentience and your rights to this planet, where your hunting grounds are protected, not poisoned." For a long moment, there was absolute silence. Then Krell stepped forward, bowing his head in respect. "Marcus Fletcher is Alpha now," he announced. One by one, the other Hish followed suit, acknowledging their new, strange, weaponless leader. As several Hish moved to free the defeated Drakthar from beneath the tree, Marcus caught the former Alpha's gaze. There was something new there, not acceptance, exactly, but perhaps the beginning of respect. "Human think different." Drakthar grunted as he was pulled free, his legs clearly broken, but his pride somehow intact. Maybe not all bad thinking. "High praise," Marcus replied with a tired smile. "Now, about those mining operations." 3 months passed before a council ship returned to Vorax. In that time, Marcus had not only survived but thrived as the unlikely Alpha of the Hish. He'd learned their language, studied their culture, and helped reorganize their society to better defend against the Council's encroachment. The Hish, for their part, had embraced many of his human ideas, especially the concept of diplomatic negotiation backed by the threat of force, rather than immediate violence. They were natural hunters. After all, the idea of wearing down prey through strategic pressure made intuitive sense to them. When the mining ship descended through Vorax's atmosphere, it wasn't met with the usual disorganized attacks. Instead, it found itself surrounded by a disciplined force of Hish warriors, all armed with new weapons that combined their natural hunting prowess with human design principles. The ship's commander, a Tellurian named Vox D. Hahn, was not impressed. When Marcus stepped forward to speak, the commander's facial tentacles writhed with disgust. "Marcus Fletcher," D. Hahn said through the ship's external speakers, "the council assumed you were dead." "Sorry to disappoint," Marcus replied cheerfully. "As you can see, I've made some friends." "These creatures are classified as non-sentient fauna," D. Hahn stated flatly. Your presence here is irrelevant. The mining operation will proceed as scheduled. At this, Krell stepped forward, addressing the ship directly in perfect galactic standard. We are Hish. We are people. This our world. You leave or face consequences. The ship's sensors swiveled wildly, clearly shocked at hearing articulate speech from a species they'd classified as animals. Marcus couldn't help but smile at Dehaan's predicament. As you can see, Marcus explained, there's been a slight classification error. The Hish are fully sentient and have a complex society under galactic law, Article 17. That makes this planet a protected sovereign world. This is some trick, Dehaan spluttered, some human deception. In response, Marcus gestured to the hundreds of Hish surrounding the ship, each demonstrating clear signs of coordinated, intelligent behavior. Does this look like a trick to you? The Hish have been here for thousands of years. They've observed your ships, learned your language, watched as you poisoned their hunting grounds with radioactive mining waste. The standoff lasted for several tense hours as Dehaan communicated with the Galactic Council. Eventually, a new voice came over the speaker, one Marcus recognized immediately. Marcus Fletcher, said High Councillor Jean, his gelatinous form visible on the ship's external view screen. You continue to be an unexpected complication. It's a gift, Marcus replied with a shrug. Now, about the Hish's classification status. We have reviewed the sensor data, Jean admitted reluctantly. There appears to be evidence of sentience we had not previously detected. How convenient, Marcus remarked dryly. And the mining operations? It will be suspended pending a full investigation, Jean conceded. Eye stalks drooping in what might have been embarrassment or more likely, annoyance at lost profits. Not suspended, Marcus corrected firmly, terminated, and with full restoration of damaged territories. Or would the Council prefer I submit a formal complaint to the Galactic Rights Commission? I'm sure they'd be fascinated by how a clearly sentient species was accidentally classified as fauna just when valuable minerals were discovered on their homeworld. The threat hung in the air, its implications clear. The Council had built its reputation on fair treatment of sentient species. A scandal of this magnitude would undermine centuries of diplomatic work. Very well. Jean acquiesced after a long pause. The mining operations will be terminated. A diplomatic envoy will be dispatched to establish formal relations with the Ish, was it? That's right, Marcus confirmed. And I'll be serving as their representative until they choose otherwise. You? Dehaan interjected incredulously. A human exiled for diplomatic incompetence. Marcus smiled, gesturing to the hundreds of Hish warriors who stood ready to defend their alpha and their world. I seem to be doing all right so far. 6 months after the confrontation with the mining ship, Marcus found himself back in the same Galactic Council chamber where he'd been sentenced to exile. This time, however, he wasn't alone. Krell stood beside him, resplendent in ceremonial Hish armor, serving as the official ambassador of Vorax. The Council recognizes Ambassador Krell of the sovereign world Vorax, announced High Councillor Jin with noticeably less enthusiasm than protocol required. Ambassador Gore Lack, whose inappropriate joke about his sacred appendage had started this whole adventure, clicked his mandibles nervously as Krell's predatory gaze settled on him. Hish people thank Council for recognition, Krell stated formally, his standard now flawless after months of intensive study. We look forward to beneficial relationship. Marcus couldn't help but smile at the barely concealed tension in the chamber. The Hish delegation Krell plus 4 honor guards who towered over even the largest council species had that effect on people. And Marcus Fletcher, Jing continued, eye stalks swiveling toward him. The council acknowledges the error in your sentencing. Your diplomatic credentials have been reinstated, and you are officially recognized as the human liaison to Vorax. Mighty generous of you, Marcus replied with just enough sarcasm to make Jin's gelatinous form ripple in irritation. Almost like you're trying to avoid a public relations disaster. Before Jin could respond, Krell stepped forward. Marcus Fletcher is honored friend of Hish. He teaches valuable lesson about council diplomacy. Oh, Jean inquired cautiously. What lesson is that? Krell's mouth opened in what the council members likely perceived as a threatening display of teeth, but what Marcus recognized as a smile. And words work better when backed by many warriors with sharp claws. A nervous titter ran through the chamber as the council members finally grasped what had happened in sending Marcus Fletcher to die on a predator world. But they had inadvertently created the perfect ambassador for a species whose concept of diplomacy included ritualized combat. Indeed, Jean acknowledged stiffly. Now, regarding the trade agreements. First, Krell interrupted. Reparations for mining damage, then trade talks. What followed was perhaps the most unusual diplomatic negotiation in council history. Krell, coached by Marcus, combined Hish directness with human strategic thinking. When a council member tried to insert a clause that would have reopened limited mining rights, Krell simply stared at them silently until they withdrew the proposal. By the end of the session, Vorax had secured full sovereign status, a comprehensive restoration program for damaged territories, and trade agreements that favored the Hish's hunting-based economy. As they left the chamber, Marcus nudged Krell. "Not bad for your first council meeting." "Easier than expected," Krell admitted. "No actual fighting needed." "That's diplomacy for you," Marcus laughed. "All the victory, none of the blood." In the months that followed, Marcus split his time between Earth and Vorax, helping the Hish integrate into galactic society while preserving their unique culture. The Council, for their part, launched a comprehensive review of all worlds classified as uninhabited, discovering 3 other cases of misclassified sentient species, though none quite as dramatically dangerous as the Hish. One standard year after his exile, Marcus stood on a newly constructed landing pad overlooking the Hish capital territory. What had once been a collection of hunting camps had evolved into a thriving settlement that combined Hish traditions with carefully selected galactic technologies. Drak-Thar, his legs healed but still bearing a slight limp from the challenge fight, approached and stood beside him. "Marcus Fletcher think Hish change is good?" the former Alpha asked, his standard improving but still rough around the edges. "I think the Hish are determining their own future," Marcus replied diplomatically. "That's always good." Drak-Thar made a rumbling sound that Marcus had learned was laughter. Human diplomatic answer. Hish would just say yes or no. "Fair enough," Marcus conceded with a smile. "Yes, I think the changes are good. The Hish are respected now, not feared or exploited." Drak-Thar nodded, looking out at the transformed landscape. "Council thinks your punishment was mistake. I think best thing Council ever did." Marcus laughed out loud at that. "You know what? I'm starting to agree." As the larger of Vorax's moons rose over the horizon, casting its blue light across the settlement, Marcus reflected on the strange path that had led him here. A diplomatic faux pas, an exile meant as a death sentence, and now a thriving alliance between humans and a race of honor-bound predators. Sometimes, he mused to himself, the universe has a weird sense of humor. Somewhere in the Galactic Council chambers, Ambassador Gorlak's sacred appendage twitched in agreement.